Hey, how's everybody doing today? I know it's been a stressful time in our nation, and I hope that you guys are looking to the Lord no matter what happens. And today we're going to look at Psalm 26, and I'm just going to read it to you. It says, "Declare me innocent, O Lord, for I have acted with integrity. I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. Put me on trial, Lord, and cross-examine me. Test my motives and my heart. For I am always aware of your unfailing love, and I have lived according to your truth. I do not spend time with liars or go along with hypocrites. I hate the gatherings of those who do evil, and I refuse to join in with the wicked. I wash my hands to declare my innocence. I come to your altar, O Lord, singing a song of thanksgiving and telling of all your wonders. I love your sanctuary, Lord, the place where your glorious presence dwells. Don't let me suffer the fate of sinners. Don't condemn me along with murderers. Their hands are dirty with evil schemes, and they constantly take bribes. But I am not like that. I live with integrity. So redeem me and show me mercy. Now I stand on solid ground, and I will publicly praise the Lord." It's Psalm 26. I think I mentioned it earlier, but it's one of the Psalms of David. And the first thing that kind of struck me was, he's asking God to declare him innocent because he's acted with integrity. And then he says something, and I started asking myself, would I be willing to say this to God? Would you? Put me on trial, Lord, and cross-examine me. Test my motives and my heart. And, that's a pretty bold statement. And you might ask, well, David wasn't perfect. David was a sinner. I mean, it's not clear whether this psalm came before or after he fell with Bathsheba, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. He was a sinful man. And so even though those are sins that we know of, he sinned before that. I mean, he talks in Psalm 139 about how in sin his mother conceived him, and that he was sinful from the beginning, that he had a sin nature. So how could somebody, sing out in church or write this psalm that says, declare me innocent? And then he says, cross-examine me and test me. Test my motives and my heart. How many of us would be willing to do that today? And how was David able to do that? Well, the main reason is because David understood about God's grace. I mean, he's also the one who said, if you counted iniquities, Lord, who could stand? And if you caught it, those sometimes, there's certain verses that stick out to us, and that's good. We should pay attention to those. But sometimes it's the verses that don't necessarily stick out the first time we read them that a lot of times have the answer for the questions we have for the ones that stick out. He says, look, declare me innocent, O Lord, for I've acted with integrity. Now that sounds, you might even say that sounds prideful. But here's what he says: I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. And then he says, put me on trial, Lord, and cross-examine me. Test my motives and my heart. And the verse right after that says, for I am always aware of your unfailing love, and I've lived according to your truth. The thing that David understood, and the reason that David was able to say these things in this psalm, is because he understood God's forgiveness and God's grace. That the fact that he was able to stand with integrity before God was not ultimately based on what he did or didn't do. It was based on God's unfailing love, that God's promises to him. And that's the same reason. See, all of us could read this psalm as well. And so there's two parts that I want to talk about. Number one, when God declares us forgiven, we're forgiven. When God declares us righteous, we are righteous. And so we can stand with confidence before God, not because of what we've done, but because he's done that. The second part of that is these verses that David's talking about are important. There's another place where David said, test me for presumptuous sins. In other words, sins that I'm not even aware that I'm committing, because he didn't want to unconsciously fall into sin before God. And so it's good that we ask for God to evaluate us. The second part of that is, even though God has forgiven us, he's declared us righteous, he has been faithful to us, that's not an excuse for us to go out and do whatever we want to do. David said a couple things in this. He said, look, I do not spend time with liars or go along with hypocrites. I hate the gatherings of those who do evil, and I refuse to join in with the wicked. I wash my hands to declare my innocence. I come to your altar, O Lord, singing a song of thanksgiving and telling of all your wonders. So even as we realize that God has declared us righteous and that we have forgiveness and grace through him, we should still always be evaluating our lives to make sure that we're following the ways of God. Don't let me suffer the fate of sinners. Don't condemn me along with murderers. And then the last verse, he says, now I stand on solid ground and I will publicly praise the Lord. The solid ground that we stand on is the foundation that we have in Jesus. So David understood that he was righteous before God because of who God is, not because of who he is. And because of that, he could stand up and be honest and open before God about the goodness in his life and also about the things that weren't so good. So that's the message that I have for you today is we do rely on the grace of God, but we also should be evaluating ourselves constantly to make sure that we're following him, that we're trusting him, that we're following his word. So that's all I got for you guys today. That's Psalm 26. Read through it, check it out. And whether we see you online or in person, hope to see you this Sunday. Have a great week.